The creators of Claude Code just released a full guide on how they use skills internally at Anthropic. This guide, however, is built only by developers. So I took the categories that were presented and translated those into the 6 categories of skills that every single business owners need to use when building their own Claude Code business OS. With that said, let me show you those categories. So everything started from this article over here, which is an article from Tariq. Tariq is actually one of the builders of Claude Code, and in here he mentioned how they are using skills internally at Anthropic. This is a very interesting read. I will leave you a link, and especially in this part, they mention what are the different types of skills that they have available and that you can actually create. Now, the only problem with this type of skill that I mentioned over here is that most of them are actually developer focused, and there is no relevance of how those can be turned into business owner focused. So what I did here in this graph over here in this presentation is I transitioned the 9 types of developer skills into 6 types that are actually developer focused so that you can start thinking what are the different types of skills that you can start to build and start to have in your Claude Code operating system. The first skill category is the tool mastery one, where Claude Code can actually have access to any single tool that you are generally using for your own business. In this example, I took Attio as an example, which is a CRM, and the idea is that Claude Code with the Attio skill can have access to every single thing that you can do within the CRM itself. So if I have a look at the skill.md file, over here I can see how everything is structured. So essentially within this file over here, I give a full explanation of how Attio can be used directly from within Claude Code. So in here they mention that there are different objects, different actions that can be used, different scripts that can be run, different values, different activation triggers, and this is all done so that if I want to do any kind of actions in my CRM, I can just do that within Claude Code. So if I say something like create a new deal for this new person, or update this specific deal with this specific deal value, that is all something that can be done directly within Claude Code. Another thing which is useful as well when it comes to the tools is that obviously you can have a skill.md, and then on top of the skill.md, there are different scripts in this specific case, which map out to the specific actions that I can do within Attio. And by the way, those are not things that I build myself, but I let the AI build. And then on top of that, we have specific modules for specific processes that we run. So for example, there's one for follow-ups where if I need to do some follow-ups, I can simply ask something like, hey, I need to do some follow-ups. What are the people that I need to reach out to? Over here, this will be loaded within the system, and the system will actually search which are the people that needs to be followed up with. So you can think about this both as a tool, so as usage to the tool itself, but also as specific processes that you can run from that specific tool. The second skill type for business owner is an intelligence type of skill. So the idea here is you will have a lot of different processes within your business where you go from raw data. So that could be different YouTube videos, that could be Google Analytics data, that could be CRM data within your CRM, to some insights that you want to have. So the idea of these specific skills is that we collect the different data sources, we pass those over to the skill itself, which in this case is a competitor research, and the competitor research is responsible for gathering the data, as well as synthesizing the data and analyzing the data, and then coming back to you with, in this case is a structured brief. So in this case is taking the data from the different channels, so taking data from YouTube, understanding what are the videos that are trending the most, and then based on that create some gap analysis, what are some opportunities for topic that I can touch, or what are some performance that we are seeing across a lot of different channels. So this is also a possibility, very useful, especially in processes where you need to always do a collection of data, an analysis of data, and then you need to have an output. So that could be call analysis, that could be this one competitor analysis, there could also be something like if you want to do any kind of research, this is where this specific skill type really shines. The next skill type that we have available are templates and setup. So generally, with these specific types of skill, what you will do is you will create a specific document, a specific template document, and that document will be used by the skill to actually create the output and model the output. So in this example, what I have here is I have a search object template, which is a file that is used when I need to capture different ideas. So every single idea is captured in this specific format, and then the idea capture skill, every single time it runs, it takes the idea that I'm mentioning throughout the conversation and then transforms that into an idea file with the format that is the same every single time. This is really useful when you have a specific pipeline that you follow for different processes with your business. So in my case, this is always used for content creation, but the same kind of approach could be applied to every different business process. For example, it could be a proposal building process or a client onboarding process where every single time you need to draft a specific email in a specific way, you need to create some specific folder for the client, and that is the idea of the templates skill that you can build. The next skill type is a business operations skill. So in here, you can think about all the different processes that you have within your business that take an input and then produce a specific kind of output. So an example here is a newsletter skill where what I do is I take the context. So I take a voice.md file that has my specific voice. I take a style.md file that has my specific style, the way that I write, and some principles that I always follow. Check whether there are some similar emails related to the one that I want to build. Write the email directly, format the emails for HTML, and then publish the email directly to kit.com. So this is one single process, but this could be applied to everything. So if you, for example, need to create outbound campaigns, you have a outbound campaign skill that follows your specific process step by step every single time. Another skill template, another skill type is the quality control skill. So a lot of the time you will produce some kind of output and it's very, very important that that output is analyzed based on your specific standards. So if you think about generating a proposal or generating a document, generating a post, it's always better to have a second set of eyes to view that specific proposal or the specific content piece so that you are sure that the actual content is valuable enough. So in this way, having a skill like a quality control skill is really, really useful so that you, for example, pass a script. So you pass a YouTube script, for example, you review that against specific criteria, or you review that against hooks, storytelling, what is the pacing, what is the engagement, the source alignment, and then if the areas are not good enough, we pass that into the revise step and suggest different fixes. This is also really powerful both for things that are qualitative, such as a YouTube script. So there's no right or wrong way to have a specific YouTube script or a content piece. All of this is based on your specific business, your specific metrics for what success looks like. But this could also be used for other areas, such as if, for example, you need to build an automation, you need to run an end-to-end process that understands whether the automation really works. And this is part of that. And you can have skills specifically related to those areas. And the last area here is the system maintenance. So in here, you can think about any single skills that improves the business operating system within Claude Code. The simpler example for me is a meta builder skill. So for example, I also made a video, you can watch it here, about the meta builder, which is essentially a skill that builds all the other skills. And this is something that you can use when building every single part of your workspace. Every time you need to build new skill, you can have access to this. And this specific skill can be used across the whole organization for every single person that needs to build new skills, new commands, new agents, and different things of that nature. Now, on top of the types, another really interesting thing was the suggestions on how to actually build good skills. So the first thing here is write gotchas, not docs. So it's important to make sure that all the skills that you build out within Claude Code are not just one-off skills that you create once and you never touch again, but instead you need to test those, pressure test those, and make sure that they are actually working and understand where they are failing and create some references of where they are failing and what you want to do instead. That needs to be added to the skill. So to give you an example, if I create a newsletter and the newsletter has a title that is 200 characters, within the gotchas file, I could mention something like, please make the subject line of the newsletter 100 characters. So in this area, the focus is always how can we refine the output that we are getting every single time. The next step here is the usage of folders and not just a single file. So I showed you the example here directly in Atio, where we have modules, scripts, and the skill itself. Generally, in order to have a skill work, you can just have a skill.md file, and this is enough to make the skill work. But if you want a proper skill, you need to add additional folders and additional components on top of that. To give you also an example for the meta builder skill, which is probably one of the most complex that I have for my business, we have the skill.md, yes, over here, but we also have modules about how you can build agents, how you can build commands, how you can build memory, how you can decide which kind of Claude Code primitive to use, and all of that is referenced back here in the file itself. So if in the file here I go I go in this part, I can see that we can reference this Claude Code file over here, or in here we can reference other specific files, so such as like the modification guide, the evaluation guide, the command guide, and so on. A third aspect here is store scripts in the skill. So I show you this for Atio, for example. And here all the scripts related to Atio should be present within the skill itself, and that is way more useful to have that instead of letting the AI handle API calls randomly. Think through setup is also something that is really important, because if you need to share skills across coworkers, not all the people have the same technical capabilities, and having a file that guides a person through an installing kind of SaaS onboarding is very important approach that you need to have every single time. Right now, with a lot of conversation right now, when we are onboarding clients into Claude Code ecosystem, especially clients that have a big team, we always create different setup and onboarding commands so that people that are new to the system can actually onboard in a similar way that you would onboard in a SaaS platform that has an onboarding wizard, for example. Next part is a description is for the model. A very important thing for the triggering of the skills is the description. So the description gives an understanding of what is the use case of this specific skill and how this skill should be used. So in here, you should have a specific description that is clear enough so that every single model can have an understanding of when is this triggered. So spend extra careful time in developing that and make sure that this is correct and this is as clear as possible for the AI agent to work. And the last thing over here is let Claude adopt. So in here, I showed you a couple of examples of skills, and keep in mind that those are not the first kind of skills that I created related to that. I created multiple versions, and this is probably version 24, for example, for the meta builder, because a lot of steps come before actually building the finalized version. And every single thing that you also have within your business is a process that over time will tend to improve, will tend to change, and the same applies here for the business processes that you build out within Claude Code. So this is it when it comes to the full business owners skill ecosystem for Claude Code. If you're interested in applying Claude Code and transitioning to Claude Code for your own specific business, you can check the second link in the description and we can have a chat together. With that said, talk to you soon. Bye bye.